it really does start with public education. So I'm going to stop there and then take questions, and Rodney, if you can, because I did read them, but if you...
I will.
Sure.
First of all, Al, would you mind showing the video? We have a short video that will explain. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Jones Act and how it affects all of us, but it does affect us in a very, very bad way. So if you'll watch this video, please. Okay.
What would the enemy want to do to the people of Hawaii during wartime? They would want to cut us off from international shipping. Well, this is what the law does to us all the time. My name is Ken Stewart. I'm a professor of economics at Hawaii Pacific University. I'm on the Board of Scholars of the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. I think the biggest problem facing the state of Hawaii today is the Jones Act. And I'm extremely grateful to Attorney John Carroll for bringing the lawsuit and challenges this on the grounds of interstate commerce. The Jones Act is a law that was passed in the 1920s to protect the American shipping industry from competition, basically. The result of this has been that many parts of the country now are cut off from 90% of all the world's shipping because of this law that says many ships that go from one American port to another American port have to be on an American vessel. That means that they have to spend much, much more money to pay for American ships that were built in American ports, owned by American companies, at a much higher cost to bring things to Hawaii from California, for example. Hawaii is cut off from 90% of all the world's shipping at much, much lower rates and bringing things here to the islands. Consider that the words of the economist Henry George, who said, protectionism in all of its forms does to your own people in peacetime what the enemy would do to you in wartime. And consider what would the enemy want to do to the people of Hawaii during wartime? They would want to cut us off from international shipping. That's what the effect of a hurricane would be too, to cut us off from international shipping. Well, this is what the law has to us all the time, not just during a moment of emergency. The president recently waived this requirement after Hurricane Sandy in the East Coast to allow international shipping to bring supplies to the destitute people in New York and that area. Well, why shouldn't we just give this access to the world's shipping at much, much lower rates during emergency time? It should be happening all the time because our economy essentially is always in an emergency. A ship that's going from China to Los Angeles has to bypass Hawaii. Here we are in the middle of the Atlantic, where all the shipping is going back and forth, and it has to bypass Hawaii. We could be certainly as rich and prosperous as Singapore or Hong Kong if we were allowed to have the access to the world. If you look at the harbor here, 100 years ago, the harbor was filled with ships from all over the world, foreign flags in abundance, and now hardly anything. Certainly Alaska and Hawaii are put at an enormous competitive disadvantage by this Jones Act, which affects them much more so because we don't have the alternatives of trucking and railroad transportation. We think that being totally self-sufficient by cutting off the rest of the world and we produce all our own things, and we lose out the opportunity for enormous benefits from comparative advantage by the specialization and division of labor, by being able to buy products from around the world and to sell to the whole world the things that we're well suited to produce. We consider bananas and agricultural products and sugar and pineapple, things that could be sent to the world much, much cheaper if we were allowed to access all this other shipping. That Hawaii can't serve the world, and we can't be served by the world.
Under the circumstances of the Jones Act, we are held hostage by, I can speak loud enough, Don. We are held hostage by the Matson Line and Horizon. Any foreign ship that comes here, any cruise line that comes here that flies under a foreign flag, has to go to the Fanning Islands, has to go to some other port before or after it leaves Hawaii. our food costs are exorbitant because we are held hostage. We can't get product any other way except on an American flagged ship directly from the mainland to us. A foreign ship cannot stop here. So this is the Jones Act. This is what I would like to see repealed. I would like the senator's opinion on this.
Thank you very much. The Jones Act is a federal law, and so the state doesn't have a whole lot of impact. I do think that there are specific benefits to the Jones Act. It does allow for consistent and regular shipping between Hawaii and the United States. I can check, but nothing prohibits explicitly foreign ships from coming to Hawaii.
Yes, it is.
They can't, you're accurate in the sense that they can't come to Hawaii and then go to LA, but they can come to Hawaii. Most of the oil that we receive here in Hawaii come on foreign ships. So we can accept direct shipments from foreign ports. But if a foreign port wants, it can only go between a foreign port and a U.S. port. It can't go between a foreign port and multiple U.S. ports. So that's part of what the Jones Act requires. So they can, though, they can ship directly from Tokyo to Honolulu or China or what the other points are. They choose not to. So I think that that's an important difference.
It's not economically viable for them not to go on to LA or to San Francisco.
Well,
That's
right.
why they don't.
Well, but I just want to make it clear that foreign ships can come into Honolulu Harbor. They choose not to. So, obviously it's an issue for the Congress and the federal government to deal with. If changes are made, then obviously we would have to live with that. There are significant benefits to the Jones Act that is in place that assures that we do and can get regular shipments here in Hawaii. It's a federal act, so we don't deal with Jones Act very much at the state level.
It affects us, though.
It does. I mean, like lots of federal laws, there are many federal laws that affect us as a state. And there are many benefits to being part of the United States of America, and there are some obligations. So.
Al, would you like to ask your question? Sure. That one.
Aloha, Senator. The likelihood of new jobs being created on the leeward coast is very low. The fact requires our leaders to shorten the time it takes for leeward residents to commute east, where jobs are more prevalent. The commute time of 1.5 hours to town is quickly becoming a disincentive to work, and on many days it now takes 2 hours to return home from town. This is getting worse and worse each year, and rail will not improve the situation for the leeward coast because half of the traffic delays are in just getting in and out of the leeward coast on Farrington Highway. Project 54 of the Oahu Regional Transportation Plan 2035 is a $233 million highway widening project that will help alleviate leeward traffic woes on Farrington Highway with more lanes and less pull-offs. So as Governor, would you support accelerating the construction time frame for Project 54 from the current Phase 2, which is 2021 to 2035, to the near-term phase of between now and 2020?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let me just, before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge Senator Miley Shimabuku, who joined us this morning. Thanks, Miley. I do enjoy working with Miley to talk about the challenges and opportunities here on the Waianae Coast. Let me just talk about that project specifically. There is a very explicit and specific process that the federal government requires states to do in order to identify and schedule and fund transportation projects. And that's the Oahu Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. And all of they have representatives from state, county governments in different regions, and they go through and they identify what the long-term needs are of the transportation system, and then they sit and they go through and prioritize them. So I'm not exactly certain what the prioritization process is. And, obviously, all of the people who sit on that board is looking at where the bottlenecks are and what opportunities there are, and then scheduling them throughout. So I did scan the list. There are many projects on that plan. It definitely is intended to be a comprehensive plan. I did not have a chance to review all of the projects that are ahead of the project. So I think I would just encourage you to make use of the process that, that there are members on Oahu from all around the island that are on that planning committee. They do evaluate all of the projects to determine.
We're trying to adjust the feedback.
Oh, I can probably talk without it. I mean, I've talked to lots of
But the
coffee hours.
seniors can't hear.
Oh, okay.
Just a little higher.
Yes. Test. Okay. So I think it's about getting engaged and being included in that process in terms of what the prioritization is. So I think we just got to work through.
Well,
Let me just say this, and I've been a very strong proponent, along with Senator Shimabukuro, about trying to create jobs, especially with Kapolei and West Hawaii side. As you know, the Aulani Resort opened at Disney, creating a whole number of jobs, and we've been working with them to really focus on finding residents who live along the coast to be employed there. I know that they're very close to initiating another hotel project in Kolina on space. I think it's the last parcel. So I think that will be happening in the near term. In addition, we did open the West Oahu College campus in Kapolei. And this past session and over the last 2 sessions, Maya and I have been really working to increase funding for the operations of West Oahu so that we can expand and take more students there. We've increased the budget, the core budget at the West Oahu campus by 100% in the last 2 years, so that we can begin to accept more students at the campus. And if you look at the campus and its master plan, there are a number of state parcels in that adjacent area that we've been looking at for creation of job centers. We've been working on the potential of having a studio. One of my first loves with Candy Suiso out here about getting a film studio on the island, and we believe that Kapolei and actually on state property or the private properties that are close to the West Oahu campus would be an ideal location. DLNR does have a parcel that's right across the street from the West Oahu campus, which is zoned for commercial activity, which is another location that we've been discussing with the department for either a business park or a research and development park to complement the activities that are currently happening on the West Oahu campus. So I really believe that you'll begin to see that the West Oahu College campus in Kapolei will serve as a catalyst and accelerator for job creation on the West region. Starting with the West Oahu campus, we're putting up a dorm. I've been working with Rodney Freitas to look at ways that we can include partnerships with other educational institutions across the Pacific. so that we can have joint investments, so we can accelerate development of the West Oahu campus. We do want to look at what state lands are available. And then there is a long-range plan that we're working out in Kalailoa about what we can do with the parcels down there. So I mean, I really do think that job growth will occur on the west side. It'll be triggered by the West Oahu, what the state has invested in the West Oahu campus. And there are other properties along that, I think that will become very important for sustained job growth here on the west side.
Another question that we have out here, Farrington Highway realignment, Mauka of the Makaha Beach Park. This is a $23 million state highway project, Makaha Bridges Replacement Project, to replace 2 safely functioning wooden bridges adjacent to Makaha Beach Park is about to be constructed in spite of virtually unanimous community objections and indifference to existing plans and a funded project already in place that the community prefers. If elected, would you direct the state DOT to cancel or modify the existing bridge replacement project so the community's long-standing requirement to route Farrington Highway around Makaha Beach Park be realized as funded and projected in the Project 50 of the current Oahu Regional Transportation Plan 2035, and as designed and approved in the 1997 Makaha Beach Park Master Plan. To go along with this, we also have 3,000 signatures of residents out here that Governor Abercrombie refused to accept pertaining to this matter. Would you accept those signatures?
You know, I would be happy to accept the signatures and talk with you and work with you about the Farrington Highway realignment. I did talk with the engineers at DOT, and they do believe that they need to do scheduled maintenance on those bridges. I did ask them where the Farrington Highway realignment project, and I wouldn't say that it's funded, rather than it is in the plan. I would like you to know that the project's scheduled ahead of it in 1 to 54, total $14 billion. So there's a lot of projects that are currently scheduled ahead of that project. So I mean, I think it's about trying to talk and listen and look at what the opportunities are here. I talked with the engineers, and they feel that they definitely would need to do the maintenance work or the work on the bridge
Maintenance
before.
work is one thing, Senator. HDOT wants to tear those 2 bridges down and replace them. Less than 10 years ago, they were retrofitted. And Scott Ishikawa was the spokesman for DOT then. And I asked him then, how long are these 2 bridges going to last us, because we want the road to go around? He said, they'll last longer than you're gonna live. So these are not repairs that HDOT is talking about. They are talking about building a temporary road on Makaha Beach and tearing those 2 existing bridges down, condemning private property to build 2 new bridges that do not meet qualifications for flood control. So I implore you to
I will
look into
definitely
this
get more information.
in depth, please. Thank you, sir. Okay, does anybody else have a question of the senator at this time?
Sure.
Aloha.
Hello.
Before I ask you my question, I want to thank you and give testimony of your good works here in the community. As a former principal and teacher for 40 years or 38 years on the coast, I've I appreciated the work that you've done to help the schools and our students. You have provided us the financial support for student improvement, as well as for teachers and even for the wages of principals. And so I wanted the community to know that this person, the candidate for governor, Higuera, has really helped our community. I never really met with you before and all that because of our busy schedule as an administrator. And I'm very proud to see all the administrators here supporting you because you have supported our children. So I just wanted to thank you first for your good works for our community.
Thank you.
My concern is about these sacred lands in Waianae. Up in Waianae Valley, called Puea, there's 2,000 acres that was returned from the Department of Agriculture to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. That is a resource for our community to preserve, protect, and perpetuate our culture. Not just for the native Hawaiians, but for all people of Hawaii and throughout the world. My nephew and I just came back from Bhutan and from London to ask the world community to support our religion, our native Hawaiian religion, and they have been more than supportive. I would like to see that Makua, Kealumula, and all of these open spaces be used as a resource, as a cultural center for the world to come and enjoy. How do you feel about preserving and protecting? Because at this time, the Department of Land and Natural Resources have destroyed and have not followed up in protecting the iwi of our kupuna, have not protected the sanctity of these sacred sites. How do you feel about correcting the Department of Land and Natural Resources so that these places could be preserved and protected for the whole world to enjoy?
Thank you for that question. As you are aware, the Hawaii State Constitution does provide explicit requirement that we protect public access for the public highways and traditional highways around and throughout the state. In addition, it does require us to protect and provide access to trust resources for traditional and customary subsistence practices of the people who inhabited the islands prior to 1778. So I don't know enough about the specifics, Glenn, of those specific locations, but there clearly is an obligation for us. I'd be more than happy to sit with you and understand. The State Historic Preservation Division does have an explicit legal duty to protect important Hawaiian cultural and historic sites. So I'm somewhat surprised about your comments, but I would love to be able to sit down and talk with you more specifically about what land you're talking about and why the department may not be willing to protect it as they are required to do by law.
Thank you again for your commitment to our children.
Thank you.
Yes, along the same lines as Mr. Keela, my question to you is, how do you feel about the EPA and the AE studies that are currently done by the state and the developers for especially our Waianae coast that sit on the brink of destruction from projects that do mere environmental assessments and don't do the required environmental impact statements that are provided by law, federal law, and they are just glossed over. We have projects here on the coast that meet almost all 13 of the criteria for an environmental impact statement, yet our state has, our city and county, DPP and our state have gone ahead and done mere environmental assessments that do not address our problems for the destruction of the EV, the natural habitat for a lot of our endangered species that we have here on the coast. And I'd like to know how you feel about that.
I do believe that we need to follow the law. So if there are requirements for environmental assessments or environmental impact statements, then we need to fulfill what those requirements are. So I'm not exactly certain what specific projects you're referring to, but it is clear that, and I agree with you, if it's a federal law, then it's the same thing that'll end up happening with the super ferry, where the state tried to administratively not fulfill the requirements of an EIS, and essentially the whole project got stopped and reversed. So I don't believe we ought to be short-circuiting the environmental assessment or the environmental impact statement process. So I'd be happy to sit with you and try and get more information about what the specific projects or concerns would be.
We have many situations like that out here on the Waianae coast in all of our valleys. My next question for you, Senator, is many of us have put in PV systems to reduce the hydrocarbons, to reduce the whole dirty air situation and enhance clean air. How do you feel about HECO's demand that those of us that do have and have put in PV systems are going to have to pay a penalty for having done so? And how do you feel about the fact that they are really trying very hard to keep others from installing PV systems? I know after my husband and I put ours in, we had to wait 6 months before HECO would come out and change the meter. And I was calling them every week. I finally got no, I'm not going to use the mic, Jack.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
We finally got one of the news stations to come out to the house, and it's amazing. The same day HECO came out, and because I told them that they were coming, HECO came out and changed the meter, and KGMB filmed it all. How do you feel about us trying to do the right thing by federal and state law to clean up the air and to use less fossil fuels, and HECO really not doing nicely by the customer?
Thank you, Robin, for that question. We at the state capitol have been frustrated by the pace that the Public Utilities Commission has been making decisions on a lot of issues relating to alternative and renewable energies. And working with Waianae this past session, we did restructure the Public Utilities Commission. We reassigned them to the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs because we heard from the Commission that they were stifled, that they were not able to hire the experts that they believed that they needed. They were not allowed to hire the staff that they believed they needed in order to get through and make the decisions, especially regarding HECO in a timely manner. So this past session, we did restructure the Public Utilities Commission. We authorized an executive director so we could have a professional to manage the operations and the personnel within the department, that commission, so that they could free up the commissioners from the administrative burden. We allowed them more flexibility to hire the professionals that they need to hire in order to respond. So the engineers and the technical experts that they need to be able to move the renewable agenda forward. We did ask them to open a docket on smart grid technology and about requiring people to have a specific plan and submit it to the legislature by the end of the year. for how they would make investments in smart grid technology so that we could, so that the consumers would have the opportunity to connect up more PV systems on the grids. And so all of those things are really in motion at this point in time. We hope, and the legislature has really been pushing the PUC to make decisions on interconnection, on how utility scale alternative energy providers can connect to the grid, pushing them on smart grid investments to allow for more alternative customer-driven generation to be part of the network. So hopefully you'll begin to see a lot more action at the Public Utilities Commission to really hold HECO's feet to the fire.
But the report that HECO gave the PUC is where they say, well, we'll just charge everybody that has PV $55 a month just to have it. I generate more electricity than I use, and they take it back and they sell it to their customers for 3 times more than they pay me.
The plan that the HECO submitted is not adopted whole just because they did it and just because they submitted it doesn't mean that it's in effect. Any changes to the way that HECO prices, any changes to the assessment to PV owners would have to go through the rulemaking and rate-making process. So that just because they have it in their plan doesn't make it happen. And as I said, as we restructure the Public Utilities Commission, they will be looking at all of the issues that have been identified in HECO's plan and then making decisions one by one as we go through about what things make sense and what things don't make sense.
Along this line, Senator Ely, with Rodlin's issue, it brings it right back to the Waianae Coast. I have many, many friends. I also own and live in a home in Kailua on the east side of Oahu. I have many friends that have put these systems in, and within a month of them applying for their permits, having it installed, they're hooked up and they're ready to go. Yet, us people on the Waianae Coast, we have to wait 6 months. It's not right. And if you could do some kind of investigation, I'm sure we would all appreciate it, because I have not done anything with my Makaha property because of these issues. I don't want to be paying for a system that I can't use, and that's what's happening to these people. You pay $25,000, $35,000 to put these on your roof. You're paying for them, yet you're not hooked up, you can't use them, and you're still paying a $400 or $500 electric bill. It's just not fair for all of us out here in Waianae.
Well, I definitely would be looking into that, but I can tell you it's not just here in Waianae, because I have lots of constituents in Idaho City calling me about this. They had the same situation. So don't believe it's just here in Waianae. It is around across the state. But I can definitely ask the question and get some information about more specific information about transparency and public access to the legislative process. You know, as you are aware, all of the documents that senators and House members use to make decisions is available to all of you in the public on our Capitol website. You know, we have won national awards for our Capitol website in terms of the availability and accessibility for important documents, and most importantly about timeliness and allowing the use of technology to allow people across the state to be more engaged from their communities. So as governor, I will be looking to implement and maximize similar opportunities. You know, I think that we can do a better job with boards and commissions across the state. And if we had a website that consolidated the minutes and the hearing agendas and all of those things, it would make it much easier for the public to keep track of all of the various boards and commissions across the state that are meeting and working. You know, I do intend to be accessible to the press. We have been talking about various proposals that we would make to have cabinet members as well as other important members of my administration to be available in meetings throughout the communities. You know, as a state legislator, I had conducted 8 to 10 town meetings in my community every year. It gets a little bit more of a challenge when you have to be statewide and trying to figure out how we can get engaged and connected with all the communities. Will be a bigger challenge, but I will be working with MyDay to try and figure out how we can work together to schedule town meetings and other opportunities for civic engagement. You know, I've been a big advocate and supporter of using technology and engaging the public and making it easier for them to participate in the government process, and I will continue to do that. You know, homelessness is a challenge. I believe that all of us in the community really need to address and confront. As I met with the mayors all across the state, homelessness has reached each and every community. You know, there are homeless in Pearl City and Aiea, just as there is along the Waianae coast. And Waikiki and out on the North Shore as well. So our homelessness efforts really has to encompass everyone. There's no magic bullet that suddenly homelessness will disappear in 100 days. It really is about a concerted, focused effort by everyone involved, and that would be state, federal, and county levels of government. The Housing First program has worked in other jurisdictions. What we need to provide, or what we need to find, is private sector partners who can provide emergency shelter for homeless people in the communities. We do need to have homeless shelters in each and every community, rather than trying to wash them out of the parks and have them moved into some other area of the community. It really is about finding opportunities for emergency shelters in each and every community. And then it really is about all levels of government and the private sector working to combine resources and provide help for those most motivated. We really should focus on those most motivated to leave the state of homelessness. You know, there is homeless families now with parents that do have jobs but are not able to earn enough to pay market rents. And those are the families, I think, and people that we need to focus on. And the kind of support and services we have, state does provide mental health services, provides health services in community health centers. We do provide substance abuse services or job training programs that we can provide and support a homeless family who is motivated to better themselves or find a better job. I think all of those are important. 10% of the homeless in our community are veterans and are entitled to significant federal benefits. So we do need to work with the federal government to ensure that if they are a veteran and they are entitled to federal benefits, that we help them access those benefits. And then I do believe that there is a place to work with the private sector. There has been some proposals by business organizations that are willing to put up money. And if there's someone who's homeless in Hawaii and has come from some other state and has family or has reason to believe that if they could get back to the mainland, that they would be in a better situation than being here in Hawaii, that we ought to figure out how we can do that and not have the taxpayer pay for that.
Senator, I have one more very important subject that I would like to bring up.
Sure.
And that is Army downsizing. Some of you may be aware and some of you may not be aware that a new initiative has been presented by the military to downsize across the nation. And one of the places that they are suggesting is Schofield Barracks, Wheeler, and Shafter. 18,000 military. Now, before we go any further, I need to let you be aware of. This is a very important issue. I was part of the closure, the community concerned citizens, when Fort Ord, California was closed in Monterey, California, 20 years ago. We did it in 4 years, 1991 to 1995. I feel very strongly about the fact that it is beyond time for us to close Schofield. It is beyond time to close Wheeler. And Shafter is basically a glory base. And it should be cut down considerably. This is just one point I would like to present to all of you. Another issue that lives in Hawaii should be the concern about education before the election. The cost to educate a student in Hawaii, military or otherwise, is about $12,000 per year. And then using the average percentage of impact aid paid by the federal government, it's about 13%. Here are my calculations to educate approximately 11,000 children that are educated in the Oahu public school system that are military dependents. Total cost is approximately $132 million to the state of Hawaii for Shafter and Schofield only. Given these numbers, the state receives approximately $17,158,440 impact aid given to us by the federal government to educate these students, which is approximately $1,560 per student of the $12,000 it costs to educate that student. That leaves the taxpayer of Hawaii the balance of reading of approximate difference the state picks up for Schofield and Shafter is $114,829,560,000. That's millions, $114 million. We, the taxpayers, pay for those 11,000 students on those two bases. The fact that many military folks pay state taxes in another state because they call them their home state instead of Hawaii, that's true. But also, probably the bigger number is the lack of general excise tax revenue from the tax-free stores on bases called exchanges or commissaries, including the Navy Mall near Salt Lake Boulevard.
What is your questions about Senator Dugan, please?
He'll have time.
I can't just hear his response.
So that is a huge loss of revenue to the taxpayers of this state. As close as I can figure, all the commissaries and exchanges take in around $500,000 a day conservatively. Take that and times it by 4.712, which is our general excise tax. That is the amount of money we're losing daily. Also, the military people use the same tax-paid-for services, such as roads and schools, without contributing their share of taxes for the same. One of the many reasons our roads and schools are in such deplorable condition, the numbers using far exceed the numbers paying for repair work. One more item worth considering is the once ceded, now government land taken by these bases. I know each one is different, but some of the military facilities pay as little as $1 a year for the use of these lands. Schofield would be a huge source of income, whether federal, state, or private control, if the fair market price and taxes were paid just on the land alone. In other words, this situation is another huge loss of revenue. Think how large the tax base could be if this land brought in the revenue to the state that should or could with downsizing. Just think how much more money our state would have if we did not have these two bases. How do you feel about downsizing of the Army, Senator?
It's very clear the military spending in the state of Hawaii is the second biggest economic driver in our community, with approximately $10 to $12 billion of economic activity attributed to federal investment. So I think we need to look at all of the different proposals and be proactive. There is a lot of activity that goes into the fact that Schofield Barracks is here. There is a lot of business activity that goes in Wahiwa. So I think we need to be engaged in those proposals and really understand what the impact would be. You do have to remember that I do believe that all of those bases are on federal lands, which means that it would not automatically divert to the state. And as we know, and we've seen with the base closing at Harvest Point, although we got title to about a third of the land, the infrastructure in the base is so poor that most of the land is not usable because we don't have access to electricity, sewer, and water systems, and the investment that the state has to make the federal lands usable is significant. So, you know, I do know that the nation is going through reprioritizing and looking at what the military and Department of Defense looks like across the globe. And the Hawaii installations are part of that conversation. I think we need to be vigilant and work and understand what the proposals would be. And then look at the best opportunity for our communities throughout the state in what would make the most sense to the people of Hawaii.
The Monterey Peninsula had exactly the same situation that the island of Oahu has. Military was our #1 income, and hospitality was our #2. All the little towns around Fort Ord were, oh my God, what will happen to us? 20 years later, they have found that the best thing in the world that happened to them was the closing of Fort Ord. It is something that needs to be looked at in depth. The hospitality industry on the Monterey Peninsula, the workers could not afford a home on the Monterey Peninsula because it was way too expensive. But when Fort Ord was closed, then the people that worked in the hospitality industry, that supported the hospitality industry, that supported the support of the support, could afford to buy homes, or they could afford rent in those homes. You have to understand that it is actually costing us to have these bases. And the towns are doing 100% better after the closure of Fort Ord than they were doing while Fort Ord was open. Because they had 2-year residents instead of 20-year residents. So they had people that were coming to their business for 20 years instead of coming every 2 years and having to re-establish a clientele. The problems with closing Schofield and Wheeler and Shafter are absolutely one iota different than closing Fort Ord was. I was there, I worked it, I know what I'm talking about, and the whole community surrounding are happier than they've ever been with Fort Ord being there from 1917 as Camp Ord to 1991 as Fort Ord. So it's a very important subject that we need some definitive government looking at.
Yep, most definitely, we will be engaged in any discussion about changes to our military installations in Hawaii.
Aloha kākou. Welcome back to the Waianae Coast. Really appreciate you being here and sharing your time. My name is Ken Koike. I'm with the Waianae Coast Community Alternative Development Corps. I'm a project farm manager of 90 acres out here in the Waianae Valley on state ag park land, and I'm also a little naturopath where I use food as medicine to bring healing. So basically, all of these separate issues that were brought up come back in my mind, like the homeless issue and the land that's going to be returned eventually, as far as Makua is concerned in 2029, with or without army reduction. If they leave, that's going to even be a blessing in disguise faster, as we see it. It's not that our people are homeless. Hawaii is our home. It's that they're houseless. In fact, they don't even have the right to pitch a tent for an extended period of time in any one location without having to be fined as trespassing on public parks and so forth. It's really come to a frustrating culmination. I'm just really grateful that they don't become violent, that they still have aloha, they still have patience, they're still hoping for those who are leaders in government to help. And basically, just return the aina that they can go back on. Some people just want to live old Hawaiian style, even without electricity, without infrastructure. Yeah? They just don't want to have the police raid on and kick them out and tear down everything they built. There is an element, unfortunately, that instead of expressing their anger, they run away and they take mind-altering substances to deal with the frustration of the destruction of their families. We used to have dairy. We used to be an agricultural society. We used to produce. Yeah. Our economy was based in growing and providing and sharing. It was never an issue of not having jobs. We had so much work. Our traditions are hanaim, those that are in our community. And being Japanese American, you understand that internment camps, our heritage was that the federal government would just take, condemned us as enemies of the state, removed us, put us as prisoners. Yeah? The Hawaiian people here in Makua understand that. And they grieve like we do over the same issues. Are the same group of people. Yeah? So we know that you understand. And we're grateful that, again, you're spending this time with us, identifying with our community. I got just a couple of simple questions. Have you ever heard of Dr. Anthony Samso and Dr. Stephanie Senna before?
No, I might have met them, but I don't recognize the name.
Oh, so sorry. Okay.
No, but I meet lots of people. I apologize. I 30 years ago, I'm sorry that I don't recognize the names.
I just wanted to bring it up because Stephanie actually has a house in Kauai. They're both professors at MIT. And this is one of the very first independent pieces of research coming from an established, respected institution in America that proves the link between glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, and the detrimental effect on human health. Okay? There's a 0.91 correlation between the use of Roundup since the 1970s and the effect of autism upon the American community. That's just one of the correlated health adverse effects of what Roundup. We're not talking the GMO issue, because all the GMOs are Roundup ready, whether it's corn or soy or, they're pounding tons of Roundup in Crimea, Haviva, all over the state. That's not even an issue. Just all these GMO commercials coming up on TV. The fact that the real problem is that Roundup is actually more dangerous than Agent Orange. And that's been covered up. That is the more serious issue. It's in our water supply. And unfortunately, every year the EPA raises the safe limits for our water because this issue isn't discussed. It's all about GMO. It's not about the Roundup, yeah? But combine those two things together, and unfortunately, it's unfortunate. Monsanto doesn't have a good track record, yeah, of telling us the truth, whether it's, again, with Agent Orange or PCBs or dioxins or RGB, they have, unfortunately, a track record of harming the communities that they are in. But, yeah, so basically, would you consider the research, the actual research, in regards to the real big problems on Maui? And I know for a fact that Monsanto has introduced legislation this year that got stopped because Jessica, being in the House as a chair, refused to hear some of the bills. But we knew what was in there. But now that she's out, and now that her vice chair is going to take over the House Ag Committee, we know in 2015, Monsanto's bill to trump what the counties are doing in Kauai, Maui, and the Big Island, and to make it state law that Monsanto can continue to poison the Aina and our water, is already in place. So whatever happens on Maui's referendum means little to them. They got their ducks in a row in the ledge. They're just waiting. As governor, would you be willing to veto something like this, or at least address these issues and give this information to the department heads of Ag and Health and DLNR perhaps, because the poisoning of our water is like heptachloride, in our milk. You remember that happened, we are one island as far as sustainability is concerned. What would you consider doing about this issue?
I can assure you that any measure passed by the legislature and sitting before me as governor would be reviewed to determine whether it's in the best interest of the people of Hawaii or not. And it is with input and looking at the issues that are presented in the legislation. And then you make a decision about signing or vetoing or letting it become law without your signature. So, we'll see what the legislative session brings. I would welcome the information so that we can see. I can assure you that I do believe that it is a core service that the Department of Health protect the health and welfare of our communities. They have a mandate to continuously test the water to identify what is in the water sources that we have, and then they have the authority to take action if there are harmful chemicals or things showing up in the water. So clearly that is a function, a core function of state government in my estimation that we would have to deal with. So.
You happy to provide information for you and your staff?
Sure. I can probably take one more question and then, what time are we?
It's 11:12 right now.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I want to say one thing. I want you to get this man a new cabinet. Don't forget. He's brought so much information this morning and it all makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave, for coming and giving us this opportunity. If I can be so selfish, that's a big last question. Because water, you can be the last one. because water is such a critical and important issue for us in the west side, because it impacts agriculture tremendously, and because a lot of our people used to work in the ag industry, we know the PPK, the fighting between Board of Water Supply, whether it's Makua Valley, Waianae, anywhere. Yeah? We don't want to take any water away from them. Simply, we would like the opportunity to use the native Hawaiian traditions and technology, like Uncle Kilo folks know so well, to make more water. Meaning, every year we get the same amount of rainfall, but in the past, we used to have a fish pond at the top of Ka'ama and water taro patches that used to hold the water and keep it on our soil to allow it to percolate back into the aquifer as much as possible before it went off into the ocean. I have never heard of any state, city, or federal agency consider making more water. We only fight over the water that we have, and it continues to dwindle. According to Uncle Bill Ida, by 2050 we will be having to do desalination, taking salt water and making fresh water out of it, which is really high cost. Would you consider allowing at least the University of Hawaii to study what we already know is going to produce more water if we restore the lo'i on the Waianae, Makaha, and possibly even the Waiho mountain range? Because the terraces are still there. The last fire we had last year revealed all of the lo'i. We just want permission. Right now, DLNR has all of these things of why we cannot go back up there and restore the production of water as our ancestors used to, so that there's an abundance, so that springs can flow again in Kamai. And all over the Waianae and Makaha coast. Would you consider allowing those things to move forward?
Sure, I just need to see what the proposal is. I don't know exactly which land you're talking about and who owns the lands or what.
It's given by Waianae Board of Water.
Yeah, so I'll work with the DLNR to try and understand what the proposal is and how that would, how that would be accommodated.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This is the final question, Senator.
Well, welcome once again. So glad to see you here. I will attempt to encapsulate everything that I've heard and listen to and observe. This community here, time and time again, has voiced unanimously their will. And have seen time and time again their will ignored. When you have hundreds upon hundreds of people, an example, the situation with Opili, with D.R. Gordon getting access to all of that prime ag land and develop it for homes. What a travesty. An incredible travesty. The overwhelming support of the community against Opili being developed for housing, for homes. I watched it, I covered it. 9-1. 9 opposed, only a few in favor. Shut down. That's only one example of very many that I don't want to take the time to highlight, to bring to your attention. Maybe that could be a reason for the lowest voter turnout in the nation. They come, they voice their opinion, and they're ignored, never to be heard. There is no action. And I'm old-fashioned. I come from a generation where I was taught that our political leaders were public servants. I'm beginning to seriously question, who are these public servants serving when they ignore the will of the people? Unanimously, time and time again, we've come out in numbers opposing specific projects against our wishes, and they get approved. So here's what we need to get straight here, sir. We're getting tired. We, the people, are getting tired of being ignored, and things get pushed through without our consent. And then we're forced to abide by those decisions. Business as usual has got to come to an end. No matter if it's Republican, no matter if it's Democrat, the same policy continues. Nothing changes. The song remains the same. And that needs to be dealt with. The people here take time out of their busy lives, because they have to work twice as hard for less. We live in uncertain times. So we know what's good for us. We come here to share our manao with you. You're a good man. We're aware of your character, and we will support you 100%. But it's got to be mutual, okay? What we want unanimously needs to be abided by and action taken on that principles. We're tired of the same old song and dance. The time for it to end, and hopefully you'll bring a revival of interaction with the community and those you serve. Thank you.